Hello, everybody within the remote work-life community. I have yet another superb guest today. I only have the best, as I always say, within the remote community. And today I have with me Henrik de, and he is a remote consultant in digital asset management for another damn consultancy. Yes, you heard it right. Another damn consultancy, which is digital asset management consultancy. And I had to have Henrik on here today because I know that information, as a marketing manager myself, and as a manager of my own sort of affairs when it comes to remote work, I have a lot of different assets. I have video, I have audio, I have PDF, I have in all kinds of different sizes and all that sort of thing. And there comes a point where you get overloaded with all that information. And Henrik is just the guy, especially for those of you in marketing, who can help you to sort of get some clarity, direction, and focus in terms of how to best create repositories, I guess, for your digital assets. So, Henrik, you are more than welcome today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time. And thanks for having me on the show.
Pleasure. And as I said, you're in marketing, you're a marketing manager, and you're trying to probably step up your content management or your content marketing. But I suppose your focus is probably going to be on creating all the assets that can attract people, whether it's across social media, across web, across but you've just so focused on that you probably lost sight of what's happening in the background, and you're getting more and more cluttered with information and data that you perhaps now begin to think, actually, you've got one eye on that and one eye on your marketing. But as I said, Henrik is the guy that can help us cut through all of that. So I want to get into that today and understand how we can best use our assets, our digital assets. And first and foremost, though, Henrik, I just wanted to find out a bit more about you and how you came to be not only podcasting about digital asset management, but also consulting and advocating for digital asset management.
Sure. Yeah. So I started shortly after university. I started as a photographer. I was a digital photojournalist for a number of years, around 2000. And of course, I photographed 9/11 and things like that because I was based in Washington, D.C. And shortly after that, I left photojournalism, even though I was creating many digital files, many digital files for up to 250,000 images a year, basically.
Wow.
Yeah. So all of those had to be archived and found quickly because photojournalism, just like journalism in general, is all about deadlines, right? And finding that stuff, that image that you really need as fast as possible. So whether it's that politician that is hidden away because he or she did something stupid, or whoever, they need it within minutes. Some deadlines are sometimes within minutes that it's needed. So I would go and photograph up to 1 to 5 assignments a year, and 1 to 5 assignments a day. Excuse me, and sometimes I wouldn't be able to come back to the office, and I started by having a laptop and being able to transmit my images as from the scene or in the year 2000. And around 2004, I left journalism to enter into finance because for some reason that was paying better. Mm-hmm. And I was doing the same thing for the financial institution. And then a couple of years after that, I left that because I was basically photographing white men shaking hands all day long, which was not too exciting. But I was still creating up to 10,000 images a day.
That's incredible.
During very busy times. And that's an enormous amount of files. And you need to be able to find, so-and-so individual for such and such publication very quickly, for such and such purpose very quickly. And we were using digital asset management the entire time. We weren't calling it that then. We were just calling it basically archiving your images, putting them on CDs or DVDs, putting them on hard drives, and then eventually came the tool called DAM, or Digital Asset Management. And we're able to upload all our photos, all our publications, all our graphics, all our videos, and find them very quickly just based on the information. So the people have processes that use technology to enable them, and that is all empowered by the information, which almost everyone forgets. So those four components, the people, process, technology, and information, is what digital asset management is. It's not just a tool. It's not just a piece of software. It involves all four components. And that information, which is commonly called metadata and taxonomy and ontology, is the information about who, what, where, when, why, how, right, of that image, of that graphic, of when it was created,
sure,
what's the contents, things like that. And so after I left finance, I went into education. I helped build some DAM systems for my employer at the time. And then I was called on a regular basis by other people outside of the company saying, well, you know a lot about digital asset management. Can you help me about this? Would you consult? I'm like, sure, I'll happily consult for you. And then eventually the right opportunity came. And they were like, can you come in and help us set up this DAM system? It has 5,000 assets. We have 10,000 assets, and we need that set up in the next month. Now, mind you, at the time, I was managing 1.2 million files.
That is incredible.
1.2 million digital assets, which was tripling every single year. And it was the hub for all of the content for that educational publisher. And that educational publisher is still using pretty much the same technology for the most part.
So what year was that around? Where was that?
This was in 2006 to 2012.
Right, okay.
Right? And then eventually in 2012, 2012, I got an opportunity to go into New York and say, and this organization said, we have 5,000 to 10,000 assets that we need, and there were campaigns that they needed, about 40 some campaigns that they needed managed for themselves and set up into the system, and they weren't able to migrate the assets from multiple different sources, which we'll talk about, and into one system. So there was a single source of truth, right, for all of their campaigns, all of their digital media, right, all of their rich media, more importantly, right. So whether it was audio, video, text, graphics, or photos. And then after that, I was working for several Fortune 500 companies, and one of them said, well, we like you, and we really like working with you, but we don't like who you work for. And we
really,
and yeah, and there's like, well, I'm bound by a contract, so I can't go work for you. So, but that kicked in the gears, and I thought, well, you know what, that sounds like I need to go work for myself. And so I started another DAM consultancy. And shortly after that, I became a remote consultant. I was already consulting pretty much for all of my clients at the time. I was working from home, and all of my clients, with a few touch points here and there, the clients allowed me to work from home, because basically once you establish trust and you establish the access that you need and the people that you need to talk to on a regular basis, like stakeholders, sponsors, etc., you can do this from anywhere, because I'm managing digital files. I'm not moving physical objects around, right? So even now, it's a non-issue to be a remote consultant. And that's what I'm advocating nowadays, is being a remote consultant, because it's not just for during the pandemic. It's going to be probably the norm, because why would you want to commute? Why would you want to go hunt for a parking space? Why would you want to sit in a cubicle farm? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Especially now that you built up, like you said, you built up your networks, you built that trust, you've built your client base, you're good at what you do, you're very good at what you do. So, why, and the whole premise of what you do is based on things that, like you said, aren't physical objects anyway. So, just about I suppose for you now, it's about the relationships, isn't it? Continuing those and building those relationships, is it?
Yeah, to a degree, yes. I'm a short-term consultant, to be perfectly honest. My engagements are anywhere between a few weeks to a few months. I'm not there to be in permanence there, unlike many of my consulting brethren, where I embed myself in permanence. That's not my goal. My goal is to solve problems and give them a strategy so that if the problem comes back, they can solve it on their own, and then move on to the next client that has similar problems or different problems for that matter that I can solve.
And it's amazing that how many people I speak to where their careers evolve and emerge out of solving their own problems for themselves, i.e. the problems that you had with your own digital photography, and you built upon that, you built your expertise, and now you've reached that point where you are now a go-to expert in terms of solving those same problems that you had for other people. I love that.
Yeah, it works, and it really starts with knowing how to manage your own stuff.
And it also seems as well, the other thing, because obviously we're in very much a digital age right now, where it's not just about solving problems, but it's about culture shifts as well, I guess, because you've aligned yourself with a culture shift, which, i.e., people are taking their stuff, which used to be, paper. Then it was digital. Now it's all in the cloud and all that sort of stuff. So you've aligned yourself quite nicely with a culture shift that is probably going to be, going on and on and on for years and years to come, and more people, I hope, or by the sounds of it, are going to need what you do, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, because everything is born digital nowadays, right? Whether it's audio, video, text, graphics, or photos, and so how do you manage it is the question, right? How do you find it again? And more importantly, if you're an organization, how does someone else find the stuff that you created or acquired?
Mm-hmm. And so you've built your organization. Do you also have any other members of your team as well?
No, I purposely do not have any employees. I decided not to have any employees, and I hire short-term contractors on a task basis or an assignment basis with a fixed term, when needed and when assigned. So there's no burden where I have to support employees on a regular basis. That was a decision I made very early on.
Mm-hmm. So you've essentially created a business in your own sort of image, and a business obviously that serves clients' needs and is empathetic to clients' needs, but it's a business that essentially is built around how you want to work, and I love that. I love it. And I mean, this, I suppose, apart from the career side of things, what effect has remote work had on your life, Henrik?
Well, the thing that was major to me was I could live anywhere I wanted to. And so my wife's family all moved to South Carolina, near Hilton Head Island. And I was like, well, as long as I'm near an airport, if I have to fly to a client to see them, which I have one near Savannah, Georgia, I can go pretty much anywhere. I could live just about anywhere I needed to. And so we moved here about 3 years ago. And I don't miss living in the Washington area, the traffic, the commutes, it's not worth it anymore. So living in a metro area, in my opinion, is very overrated. And I used to love going to New York City. Nowadays, that's not as nice for obvious reasons.
Yes.
For hopefully very temporarily, for their sake. But there's the major shift is you can live anywhere you want to. You don't necessarily work the hours you want to, unless you own your own business, because you're still serving clients, right? So it depends on what time zone the clients are, because none of my clients are in South Carolina. None of them are. Most of them are not in the South. Most of them are national. So I have to play the time zone game. And then with those national clients, they sometimes have a global presence. And so I'll have to talk to Asia or Europe or wherever, right? But the shift is basically you work from home. Your commute is basically getting out of bed and going to your home office,
Yeah.
right? Hopefully you have a door so you can keep out the residents.
Oh yes,
which we're both familiar with.
absolutely.
And you can function and you can thrive and you can operate your business from anywhere you want to. So I don't have to be in my home office. Today I am. And we're actually not in lockdown anymore here. But I choose to continue working here because it's more convenient. I have better internet access, etc. But there are places where I can literally sit in a covered area with Wi-Fi and work there all day long from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. if I really wanted to, and look at the water.
Lovely, lovely. And you mentioned that you're not on lockdown at the minute, but I mean, if in a normal situation, would you normally sort of like juggle the different places where you would do your work, a day in your house, or how would you normally sort of go about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll look at my schedule and seeing how many meetings I have, because I'm very conscious of the ambient noises around me. So obviously, if I'm outside, I can't control the ambient noises, right? I can't control the cars or the planes or the birds or anything else that's making noise around me. So if I have meetings, I typically take them here in my home office. And then that's usually how I decide. Otherwise, I'll go to the island and walk in the morning and walk in the afternoon and check out some stores or something like that, and take some breaks during the work cycle. Because I'm usually booked up for the week pretty quickly with client work and others and other projects that we'll talk about, and do it that way.
Sounds great, and that's what it's all about. It's having the ability to serve your clients to the best of your ability, but also the flexibility to work in a way that also suits you as well. So great combination.
Yeah. The freedom. Mm-hmm.
This is it. And so you've built your remote career. You've built your remote business. What are the main things that you've learned that you feel are important to anybody who may be looking, they're in a transition period where they're thinking about moving from their co-located space or their co-located career to a remote career. What do you think are the main things that you could pass on to them about how to make it sustainable?
Absolutely, yeah. So it depends. Number one, who's your employer and what's their policy for remote work, right? Hopefully they have one. Otherwise, I highly recommend that you ask to work remotely and help them set that policy, because there may be a trial period if they've never done it before. But realistically speaking, you can help set that precedent. You can help set that norm. And working from home actually means working from home or working from a remote location. It does not mean like you're going to Netflix and chill, right? It means you're actually going to still deliver results, right? That's the key thing. You're going to still attend virtual meetings or calls as scheduled, and you're going to still be available within reason, within time boundaries, not at 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that, typically. But within reason to do what you need to do for the deliverables of the organization, because you have to continue delivering value. That's what your employer really wants, right? They want value. They want results, right? And whatever those results are, whether it's delivering a piece of content, distributing it to said channels, or solving XYZ issues, or whatever, right? It's still delivering value and still delivering results, and something that can be measured. So if you can measure your performance, right, not just hours worked, because that's too easy, but what you actually did during that time. Mm-hmm. So in my calendar, I literally block off the time that I'm going to do certain things, or that and I move it around on my virtual calendar based on what I actually do versus what I plan on doing, mm-hmm. right? Because some things shift. A calendar is a nice plan, but it's not solid and never changes, as we all know. Mm-hmm. So things come up and you will adapt. And as a remote worker, it's very easy to adapt, honestly, as long as you have the proper communications. I noticed when I was working for a client, I was more in the loop and better connected and communicated with when I was remote than when I was sitting in their office, which makes no sense, right? You think that they could just glance over. It's no, I had to walk to meetings and then be informed and then walk back.
Sure.
It's It was like, why am I doing that? Yeah, it's a waste of time,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest. When I could have a scheduled meeting just like this, right? And you log in at this time, log off at that time because you have another meeting or another task to do shortly afterwards, right? And you time block everything. So managing your time and managing your energy, right? So that like, oh, this is going to be very energy intensive. So I may need to do this in the morning when I have more energy, or in the afternoon if I have more energy. Then I don't know. People vary, right? Kind of like nighttime people versus morning people,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And figuring out what that looks like. So managing your energy, your time, being adaptable, understanding what the concerns of your employer are, right? Because they still want you to be available to one degree or another, but everything should be able to be scheduled realistically, not ad hoc. Everything's on fire, right? Because firefighting is draining. Let's be honest. It should be temporary, not permanent, right? And it should be manageable, right? So like, because if it's 24-hour firefighting, then you shouldn't be the only firefighter, right? There should be shifts.
Somebody else, yeah.
Right. Right. So following the sun or whatever that model looks like.
No, I like that. And I think that's what I've learned. I learned, I guess, when I first started working remotely, I didn't necessarily plan. I was quite ad hoc in the way that I did things. And it's quite funny because when I was working in an office, that's how I worked, and it worked for me in the office because obviously there's a lot more structure there. So I suppose when I think about back now, I probably wasn't a natural candidate for somebody who you think would be suitable to remote work, but I adapted and I evolved myself, and I learned from people like you. I observed, and then I adapted all of those things that you just mentioned there: scheduling, calendars, blocking out times of work, and planning. It just really taught me it helped me to become a more rounded professional in that, from that respect. So I can understand that completely, and it's great advice. So yeah, let's get into digital asset management, because as I said, I want to learn from this myself, being somebody who's in marketing and has so many different assets all around. And what we're going to cover today really is for marketing managers. And I know a lot of you are in marketing. You head up teams. You may have your own business and have team members around you, social media managers, etc. And you're having all these different kinds of assets that you need to really take care of. So I think this would be really good for you to really tune into, because Henrik is the expert where this is all concerned. Just tell us first and foremost. I mean, you did touch on it in the introduction, but what does digital asset management actually mean and do?
Sure. Yeah. So DAM, or digital asset management, is basically being able to search, find, use, and then more importantly, reuse and repurpose your digital assets, whether that's audio, video, text, graphics, or photos, so rich media, whether it's the component that goes in that PDF or that ad, like the photograph or the copy, or the finished file in any iteration, whether it's for social, out of home, print, online, web, whatever, right? Mobile, etc., all that fun stuff. So it's basically becomes your hub for all that digital media, and it becomes that nerve center for that distribution to all those different channels, so that you can publish that content when you need it to as many places as you need, in a distributed fashion, in a kind of a hub and spoke fashion, right? Mm-hmm. And DAM is in the middle of that hub and spoke. It is the hub.
And lots of people have probably, myself included, they're using lots of cloud-based systems right now to store their assets, and they've got a folder here and a folder there, and they might even have an external hard drive there as well. So, and they might think, actually, I'm getting on quite well in that sort of arrangement, and they might think, actually, why do I actually need digital asset management anyway? What's your feeling around that? Why does somebody really need to really be serious about their digital asset management right now?
Sure. Yeah. So now is a perfect time because a lot of digital asset managers are available. And interestingly enough, there are not that many remote DAM positions yet. But if you're looking for someone anywhere in the world, now would be the perfect time to go look for them. But more importantly, back to your question, it's an evolution. DAM is an evolution. You first start with your own computer, right? And then eventually you figure out, I need external hard drive.
Yeah.
And then, I don't have enough external hard drive space, so I'm going to go to the cloud.
This sounds like me.
Trust me, it's almost everyone that goes through this evolution. And then eventually you try to figure out your folders and file naming structures, and you try to evolve them, and they break, especially when more than one person is involved. Usually only one person needs to be involved to mess that up, because humans are not consistent. Machines are, humans are not, right? That's just human nature. There's nothing we can do about it. So it's not you, it's not me, it's everybody, right? Mm-hmm. So everyone has this problem. That's the sad part. If you think about what's on your phone, right? What happens when you switch phones?
Well,
and all those images.
Oh my gosh,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Having to transfer it all. Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's your personal photos, right? There's the pictures that you may have taken with said camera, aside from your phone, if you have one. Then there's your music, right? How do you manage your music nowadays if they're not on physical disc, right? Which is getting less and less popular, right? Because everyone wants to take their entire library with them, mm-hmm. which makes sense by today's standard, right? So how do you take your music with you, and how do you find the music that you really want, right? The music that's tailored to you, right? Mm-hmm. The stuff that you bought or licensed or whatever, right? And most professionals in my field start by managing their own photography, their own videos, and their own music. And that's how you start in that field. Because if you can manage your own stuff and you can literally go, I only care about my 5-star ratings of this genre of music, of stuff with no words, so I can study or I can focus on work, right? Mm-hmm. And I can, and then later I need some cool down music or whatever, sure. And I'm looking for this kind of music. Great. So if you can filter that kind of music and not just use Spotify, which is too easy today, but it's music tailored just to you, that you tailored, that you, more importantly, curated, right? Because it's a curated library, just like managers, marketing managers, they're curating the information, they're curating the collateral, they're curating the imagery and the video and the story, right, of what they want to tell to whom, right? And that's how you do it, right? You tailor it, you curate it. And this is what DAM is about curation of media, a rich media, so that you can find that image or that video or that audio file that you're looking for instantaneously, within seconds, not hours, not days, not weeks, not months, right? Where I lost a file that we paid $1 million for. That's not an unheard of story in even Fortune 500 companies, right? Where they paid a stupid amount of money and they've used it once and now they need to use it again and they can license it again, but they don't know where it is.
They lose files of that size and that expense.
Yes, all the time, which is sad, right? It's very sad. Oh, wow. But everyone has this problem. So digital asset management is part of that solution, right? It's not just buying a system. I'll give you that really very honest, because I'm a vendor neutral consultant. I don't pretend that I prefer 1 or 5 different systems that may fit your round hole and I'm going to try to put that square peg in there. Mm-hmm. I don't do that. What I try to do is I look at all the challenges that you're facing, right? And figuring out, okay, so what team are you working with? Where is it supposed to go? Et cetera, et cetera. What's your workflow? So understanding the people, the process, the technology, and the information involved. Not just the DAM, right? DAM is a technology, but it's not just the technology that you're using. We're using plenty of technology today, whether you're a remote worker or not. Sure. That's irrelevant. So understanding where that's supposed to go and understanding where is it now? Okay, then once I find it, can I use it, right? That's rights management. That's a different component of digital asset management too, right? Because if I license a picture from Getty Images, right, can I use it again? Well, there's a bunch of different permissions and rights around that, right? If I own it wholeheartedly, right, as an agency or as an individual, that's different. Maybe I can use it in perpetuity. Great, super. Most of the time, I can't. There's too many restrictions and model releases and property releases and things like that, rights to pay. So understanding where is it? So getting your digital house in order, right? And organizing it in a fashion that you can find it quickly. And not just you, right? Because you may be a company of one, right? But just like myself. But then there's the organization. How does the organization search for stuff? Is it by campaign? Is it by project? Is it by photo and then things that are green? I don't know. All there's a whole different amount of different ways of slicing and dicing it. Grocery store is going to do it differently than a car company. Is going to do it differently than a Netflix equivalent, right? So very, very different use cases and scenarios.
And is there a case study that maybe you could share with us of a scenario where that's relevant to say marketing, where they've had to organize and catalog? So, I mean, I admit when I'm dealing with the videos and the pictures, sometimes I'm looking on my cloud drive, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I didn't realize I'd left that video there. It's been there for like 2 or 3 years. I'd probably been actually looking for it at the time, but I hadn't really sort of put it away in a place or I didn't have a system that would allow me to easily, like you said, in a matter of seconds, find what I was looking for. How can you systematize things so that they're easy to find? Is that a word, systematize?
Yes, definitely. You do want to systemize it, and you do want to organize it, right? So that it can be findable again, right? Not just searchable, because you can search and search and search and click and scroll all day long, but that's not the goal, right? The goal is to find, right? And then once you find it, you want to be able to use it, or for the next system or individuals to use it as well, right? And reuse it so you get maximum ROI, and repurpose it if you even want to increase your ROI again, right? Right. So just like you're going to take this video and chop it up into different bits, right? So you promote it, et cetera, things like that, right? That's really smart way of slicing and dicing and repurposing your content, right? The case studies I would recommend. There's too many to list, because I created another damn podcast and another damn blog. There's another DAM blog and another DAM podcast on purpose for that, where I've interviewed over 200 different people on that topic, across everything from fashion to the military, pipe fitters to big retailers, you name it, they're all there. I recently interviewed somebody in a nature conservatory, a space where they're taking care of birds and flora and fauna kind of thing. Before that, I spoke to many people who work within the marketing space. Typically, the DAM is used in the marketing space. They're the primary users for the most part. Sometimes it's within product development, but almost always it's involving the CMO or the marketing people who are the primary users of that tool. IT may be supporting it to a degree, but they're not the users of the tool typically.
Sure, I see. Yeah, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to link through to the podcast as well, because I think it'd be really useful for you to listen to some of those interviews and see how different organizations are doing it. Because, like Henrik said towards the middle of the show, he said that there's no sort of one size fits all, and you have to gear things towards how your team operates and the kinds of files that you're likely to have. So it's not a one size fits all. So it's down to you to really listen and sort of understand how each different company is doing it, and then gear things towards yourself. But I wanted to ask as well, Henrik, what are the steps, best practices for, because security is obviously a big thing, isn't it, where digital asset management is concerned. What are the steps for setting up a secure and compliant digital asset management sort of system?
Sure. So again, you have to understand who are the players, right? Who are the potential users or the existing users of those files, right? So that's your people, right? Then you have to understand what processes do you use right now. And what you will unfortunately find is everyone has their own process. Everyone has their own workflow. And it's not fixed. It's not regular. It will be all over the place. Mm-hmm. And the idea is to understand where are the similarities and, what's the point A to point B at the end of the day, right? And there may be a very windy path to that sometimes, but understanding what that looks like. So the people, the process. And then before you hunt for technology, look for the scenarios. So not only the processes and the workflows, but the use cases for not only the individuals using that file, yes, but the path that you want that file to have, that life cycle, right? From ideation all the way to literally sunsetting it. Meaning archiving it in permanence and potentially not even using it just for record, when you turn 100 or something, when the organization turns 100, not you. And so from ideation all the way into the potential use of it, right, or the multiple uses of it for different channels and different purposes, right, with said client or many clients for that matter, that happens too. If it's not unique content created for one client, that happens. And more importantly, what's that life cycle for the asset? Who's involved in that life cycle? As far as a role, not necessarily like Bob and then Joe and then Jan and then Mary, but the role, right? And understanding what's missing, right? And typically what you'll find is the curator, the digital asset manager, the person to help that be facilitated, not just for the implementation of the system, but in permanence. Because when are you going to stop creating digital assets?
Probably never.
Exactly. But probably, honestly, if any organization or any company stops creating digital assets, they will no longer be relevant, mm-hmm, and they will cease to exist very, very quickly, right? Because still, no one will know they exist. Like, mm-hmm, what? Oh, you don't create new stuff? So why are you still here? Right?
And how are you still here?
Right, exactly. It's like that's pretty rare, right? That they haven't created things in 50 years, right? There's very few cases of that.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue creating digital files, but how are you going to find them again? How are you going to use them again? How are you going to find them in the first place after they're created? What's that workflow from the ideation to the creation or curation or creation or acquisition of that file? And then what does that look like afterwards, right? All the way to delivery for said client or said purpose, right? And then after that, what happens after that? Well, most people don't even think about that. Most of that is actually empowered by metadata that you can create during ideation phase. When I talk to a film company, they pre-created metadata because they knew that after they created the film, and they hadn't even done editing it, but they knew they would come out as a DVD eventually, mm-hmm, right? So they pre-created all the information for every single DVD region in the world that it would be distributed. So all they'd have to do is go, okay, here's the file. Here's the file to burn, 1 million DVDs, mm-hmm, for all the regions. Great, done. But most people can't do that. Most people still need to figure out, okay, so who am I interviewing, or what's who, what, where, when, why, how, right? Of the metadata, and so I can find it again, so the individual can use it again. Mm-hmm. So it's really about finding all of your sources of information, every hard drive, every Dropbox, every cloud drive, every Google Drive, every thumb drive, every external drive, every hard drive on a computer that even if Bob is on vacation or about to retire for the sake of, mm-hmm, argument, right? All of that stuff, right? Because it has value, but you have to determine, is it how on the priority list, what's the most important? Probably, if you're a marketing manager, it's probably the imminent campaigns, right? The campaigns that are either being pitched on or actually being worked on live right now, right? So figure out what those are, and then if you have the bandwidth, look backwards and seeing if there's value in the past, right? If there's value in the past, great. If they're not, put a line in the sand in the back, and then put a line in the sand of, okay, what are we actually going to put in this system, right? Even before you look for a system, you can do this, right? Or while you're looking for a system, because you don't buy a system in one day, and you don't implement a system in one day, sadly enough.
And I guess
most people don't realize it.
Sorry, Henry. I was just going to say, I suppose the system it comes last, I guess, wouldn't it not? Once you've sort of
almost, yeah. I would recommend that you get your files, you figure out what metadata structure you want for it, what taxonomy you want for it. Right? So how are you going to find it? Right? What do you need to know about those files? Right? Specifically, it's usually around the content of, right? More than it was a file created today. That's important, but not as important as the content in it. Because when you look at a file, when you look at photos, do you really want to scroll all day long through a million files?
No,
probably not.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. That's not sustainable, right? The goal is to find it quickly, right? And the way you do it is just with Google, except damn is not Google, just to correct that and make that clear. You type it in, you type in what you're looking for, like I'm looking for a cow on a green field. Great, super. Cow on a green field, here's your choices, if you have any, right? Otherwise, you go hunt somewhere else. You go create it or acquire it elsewhere, and then you bring it in. And then you put it in that structure that you already have built, right? Because that metadata structure should continue to evolve and support everything that's going to continue coming in.
Sure.
Right? And you'll need potentially an individual to do that for you, whether remote or on site for the sake of argument. Honestly, it doesn't really matter, because if you're moving digital files, it doesn't matter where they're physically located, as long as you have trust and they know who to work with, right? And they have access. So what's nice is if you work with a proper IT system and a proper IT team, you can track everything that is done with those files, and you can have backups to those files. So if everything's lost, you can recover it. Right. If everything is mismanaged, you can recover it. If in the dam, typically in most good systems, dam systems, you can actually track every action of every user. So every download, every upload, every edit of metadata. Okay. So you have transparency. Sorry, go ahead.
Can I ask, because you've taken me back to a day, because I mean, I think most people know I used to work in hiring and in recruiting, and I used to hire taxonomists and knowledge managers, all that kind of thing. And there was a certain type of individual who had a very systematic approach to work and was very organized, very structured in the way that they work. When you're nominating somebody to sort of manage your digital assets, is that something that's important to take into consideration? Is that somebody who can be relied upon to implement that structure
yes.
alongside somebody like yourself?
Correct. Yes. So I would employ a taxonomist. I'm not a taxonomist by nature. I've worked on taxonomies before, but there's people that specialize in it. There are few and far between. There's probably less taxonomists than there are digital asset managers in the world. There's a supply challenge of digital asset management talents and taxonomists for that matter. But there's a overabundance of librarians, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
And there's an overabundance of archivists too.
Yeah, I used to my recruitment days going back now 2004. I used to recruit librarians, and I was just fascinated. Taxonomists, librarians, catalogers as well, and the way that they were so intricate and so organized. And they found it so easy. I think it came easy to them. It didn't come easy to me in terms of how they did things. But I really respected the fact that they would use like the Dewey Decimal System, and they had certain things that they would use to sort of make things accessible. They were able to increase the accessibility of information to people, and it's something that, by the sounds of it, is like you said, is very applicable to what you're saying. But to me, I still find it quite difficult to come up with a system, or even imagine a system, I suppose, that would make like thousands and thousands of files accessible. How do you come up with something that is so easily searchable then? How do you come up with a system for cataloging your things?
Well, you typically tag files individually.
Right.
So there is unique metadata. There's also a unique identifier for the file, even every iteration of the file. So a different crop, a different color space, a different even whether it's size of the file,
Right.
a codec of the file, whatever. There's all that, and the challenge is you need to be able to find that file, and the more unique metadata you have for each file, that is still consistent, right? So whether it's you're looking for a specific color, or you're looking for a specific gender or race or whatever of the person or of the thing, right, that you're looking for, great. You should have that listed in there, right? So if you look at stock photography, that's probably one of the best uses of it, but it's specifically just for photography.
Right.
When you look at product companies like CPG companies, they have a very different scenario where they'll have multiple different packagings for the exact same thing, right? But different amounts of it, different quantities of it, different sizes of it, for different seasons of it, all that stuff, right? So there's a lot of different variables in that thing. So if you look at bottles for Christmas, right, are going to be different than Lysol for in 3-packs, right? You're talking about literally very, very different things. And you want to make sure that that specificity is there, so that you can make that determination. And sometimes what happens is those systems are tied together, like product information systems are tied with DAM systems, because the product information system is the gold standard for all things that are about the product, right? If you have a product information system,
Right.
and you have many, many products, right? Then you have a DAM that has all the audio, video, and text and graphics and how-tos and MSDS and all that fun stuff about the file, about that product.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't necessarily list the size of it because that's in the PIM. So you're tying those things together, right? And you're making API calls, potentially speaking, but you want to connect all those things together and make your life easier, not drag it from one system off to your desktop and then lose it, or potentially bring it into another system and then drag it into another system and drag it into another system. You want it to be as automated as possible, right? For the typical streams that are going to happen, not just for one person, right? But for the organization, right? Especially if you're regional or national or global.
And that's why we have digital asset management consultants like yourself, because it can be challenging. Like you said, we have by nature, I suppose, even if you're working within an established organization, by nature you're sort of sharing things quite haphazardly in some ways. So I think it's something to really think about when you're dealing with your information, some of the things that Henrik has been sharing with us. And what I'm interested to know, Henrik, is before we begin to wrap up, what does the future look like in terms of digital asset management and digital? I mean, with the vast, I suppose, the vast size of files and all that sort of thing. How is that all shaping up, and what's the future looking like?
Sure, I think the future is almost entirely cloud-based, with very few exceptions. Those few exceptions are enormous files, like terabit files, like for example, certain oil digging companies will be mapping parts of the earth and finding out where all of the pockets of the oil are, and those are enormous mappings, right? That you're not going to put in a upload into your drive, and you're gonna have a couple days of lunch and dinners before that's done.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So the purpose is, for the most part, anything under a gig or two should be cloud based. Right. If all of your files are over a gig, then maybe you need some other technology, potentially like UDP, which there are several technologies for that. But basically, the future is cloud based, and I think also the future is remote work, where whether you're an art director, whether you're a marketing manager, whether you're a digital asset management professional, you can work remotely and you don't have to be locked in an office, and you can have a dialogue just like we are with two people or a pile of people on a call like this, and do it, right? And get things done and manage files with the proper tools, not just DAM, right? But DAM may be one of them, so that you can find it again and you can use it as necessary, and you know where it is in the life cycle. That's probably other tools than DAM, that where you know where is the file in the transition of where it needs to end up, right? That kind of thing. So there's many tools out there to do that with. I'm specifically a consultant around digital asset management, and I'm vendor neutral. There's over 250 DAM vendors, because and growing, sadly. And I don't prefer any of them. I focus on the client's needs.
Right.
So that's what's important, is figuring out what's going to work for you, not just for your budget, not just for your people, but also for the files and the clients that you're working with.
Got you. And talking about you as well, what does the future look like for another DAM consultancy? Anything in the pipeline that we should be keeping track of?
Yeah. So I'm working on different services aside from digital asset management, but services that are related to that, because the biggest challenge that most people face is the metadata, and I want to help fix that, because you don't actually have to do it yourself, and most people don't realize that. They're like, oh, because if you, back to your point earlier, if you look at metadata and you try to do it yourself, exactly, yeah, that's the reaction that most people have. They're like, oh, never mind, and then it doesn't get done, right? Yeah. And then if it doesn't get done, you just have a dumping ground. Mm-hmm. It's not a storage place. It's just a dumping ground. You don't want a digital dumping ground. You want to be able to find your stuff quickly and use it quickly so that it is used properly, right? And you knowing which file you need to use. Absolutely. And not just you, but the next person down the pipeline. So in my future, I see more podcasts. I see potentially more books. Definitely more webinars, and more podcast guesting and podcasts. I have 7. You can find them on henrikdegior.com. All 7 of them and all my books. But I would encourage you to go to Another Damn podcast if you want to hear case studies, if you will, from interviews that I do with other digital asset management professionals, including taxonomists and things like that. And Another Damn blog, I've had that for 10 years now. So there's plenty of things that are still very relevant even today.
Sounds great. And for sure, we're going to be keeping track. I'm going to be asking you, Henrik, for all those links so that I can put them in the show notes so people can access them easily. See, I'm starting my own sort of repository there of links so that people can access them easily, and I'll organize them nicely as well. So we'll be keeping up to date with what you're doing, Henrik. And just before we go, actually, because we've talked a lot about work, we've talked a lot about remote work, digital asset management. What do you do when you're not working? What do you do in your downtime?
Well, I still write books and I still podcast. That's my main pastime, especially in quarantine time, because you can do that like we are now from inside our homes. And then I also ride bikes. I swim when I'm permitted to. Not yet. And spend time with my wife.
Excellent. Well, I just want to say a massive thank you to you, Henrik, for joining us today on the Remote Work Life podcast. As I said, look out for the show notes. And look out for Henrik as well at Another Damn blog, Another Damn podcast, and check out the links that I will be posting below. And until next time, we'll see you again on the Remote Work Life podcast.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Henrik.